Call this meeting to order for the executive session. The school committee may seek to convene into open session and recess to executive session for a discussion and an action regarding those items of business exempt from open meeting under Rhode Island General Law 4246-4 in a discussion and action NEA SK negotiations. Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A2 in a discussion, elementary school investigation retain an investigator, Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A4. Do we have a motion to convene?
I'll make a motion to convene in executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. Thank you for attending tonight's school committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. James Festivo,
Here.
Ms. Calabetta,
Here.
Miss Melissa Boyd, Miss Kate Mancinesi,
Here.
Miss Michelle Busso,
Here.
and myself, Paula Whitford here. Mr. Bradley Shear will be joining us at some time. Please join us in the pledge allegiance to the flag. May I ask the committee for a motion to seal the minutes in the executive session?
I make a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. There were no votes taken in the executive session tonight. So we'll move on to community comments. Anyone seeking to make a comment tonight, please state your name. You have up to 3 minutes to speak. And we ask that you keep your comments to items that are on the agenda for tonight. Thank you. Ms. Busso.
Lauren Weinstock.
Lauren Weinstock. I wanted to speak to your agenda item focused on school start times. Very excited to see that you have a student advocate who will be giving a presentation this evening. As many of you know, I have been advocating to push back our middle school and high school start times for, I think I figured out it's been over 10 years now. I now have a 7th grader and a 10th grader. I started when my 10th grader was in kindergarten, sharing what I know as a psychologist and a professor at Brown University about this topic and the benefits that it would afford not only for academic performance, school attendance, and mental health. I don't want to preempt what our student is going to share with us this evening, so I'll keep that brief, but I will just say anecdotally, and I had permission to share from my children. My 7th grader, I don't know exactly what number of days we've been in school this year. He's had 36 tardies. My 10th grader, when she was in 8th grade, had 69 for the year. That was her maximum. Every morning is a misery. We are fighting against our children's biology to get them to school on time. And they are not alert and prepared to learn or perform. And I think that that's something we really need to take seriously. And in light of the most recent mental health data that we have for youth and especially teens, everybody is very concerned about what to do to help our kids. And improving their sleep is a systemic change that we can enact that can promote so much improvement for our kids. And I really hope that you listen very carefully to what our student has to share with you this evening. I'd also like to say we do have lessons learned from other communities that have been able to successfully enact this change. And I think if there's buy-in, if there's a will, we need to learn from those communities. The number one thing, the thing that makes me the most anxious, and I've heard previous people talk about this, is we do not start with a survey. Please, I beg you, no survey. What we need to do is start from the ground up with widespread education and buy-in and proactive problem solving around the obstacles that we know exist for this change. That's what needs to happen. Please, no survey, because the survey is not going to give you the data that's going to be useful without the education. So again, I encourage you to listen very openly to our student, and I thank you for making room on your agenda for that student tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel Schwartz.
My daughter is asking for later school start times. I think it'd be very valuable for the mental health of our students and for their education and their learning. That's all.
Good evening. It's going to be brief. This will be the last time I ever utter the words teacher and absenteeism at any future meeting. So in front of you is a packet of about 4 pages. So these are the printouts from accountability on the yearly report cards for South Kingstown. So it starts 2017, 2018. And what you're looking at there is teacher absenteeism. And that year, the rate was less than 10%. And the overall is about 4. Then you flip it over, 2018-19. It shows they added something that year that shows the schools where the absenteeism rate was above the recommended level. So if you have less than 5%, you get 3 points. That's the maximum number of points that the district can get for this item. If you have between 5 and 10, it's 2 points, and if it's over 10, it's 1 point. So you see there, in that time we had 7 schools operating. 2 of them had some issues, and they changed a little bit the next year. That's the one below it, and it shows where we were that year in the 2-point level between 5 and 10, and then it shows the different student groups that were most affected by having teachers being absent from the classroom. And the next page goes to 21, 22, and there's more new stuff here. So it's on they added this LEA accountability performance page, and when you drop down the views, when you hit the view summary data, comes up with what you see there. And again, it's an issue now. And when you flip it over to this past year, 22-20, I'm sorry. So that's continuing. When you flip it over, that's the continuation of 21-22. So you see where the absenteeism rate was 22.3%, and all the student groups were affected. And then down at the bottom is the performance by school. Now, Mr. Littlefield had stated at a meeting some weeks ago that the district had been miscoding the data that we sent up there to RIDE. So when I contacted Scott Gausman, because I kept waiting for the report to come out, and it, you know, it was the end of December, still hadn't come out. So he said he told me that they were trying to wrap up a few things. It was be coming out early in January, which it did. And he said that that they had been able to work over the data for 22-23. So let's go to the next page, which is South Kingstown 22-23 report card. You see teacher absenteeism is no longer highlighted in orange, so that's a good sign. And so at the top of this page, I sent an APRA request in, and I asked how many times were substitute teachers paid to cover for NEASK certified classroom teachers in 2021 to 22 and 2022 to 23. So you see those numbers there, about 3,400, about 4,300 missed days. And then the total number of times, the next sentence, number 2, that's I specifically was interested in Peacedale because they went from 24% absenteeism rate to 0. So this didn't seem right to me. So anyway, so when you flip that page over to the other side, and again, you'll see the different groups. You'll see that we got 2 points. So that it was 10.4%. So we got the 2 point number for this issue. And you'll see the different groups were affected and who were affected the most. And the reason I highlighted this is this. And here is this is South Kingstown's operating budget. And on page 22 of this year's budget, one of the goals, I don't know if it's for the town council or town of South Kingstown, one of the goals is all SK schools should be rated as 5-star schools. Now, we all want that. I want that. You want that. Everybody wants that. Okay. But to get there, our assessment scores have to improve. But another critical issue is the small subgroups that ride targets for, and one of them is that last page you got, the double-sided page here. So this is Peacedale for economically disadvantaged students. And if you don't have to look at it now, but what it shows is starting in 2018 till this past year, for the ELA scores for that subgroup, it declined every year for 6 years. Now, that's an issue because economically disadvantaged students and students with disabilities are 2 of the targeted subgroups that if you have one subgroup that's not performing up to standard, you can't be a 5-star school. The highest number you can get is a 4. And if you have 2 targeted subgroups in a school, the highest star rating you get is a 3. So that's all I want to say on that. Now, I forgot one thing. On the last page before that, so I made an error, a huge error, okay? Because I didn't know till about 10 days ago that the data that's sent to RIDE, they only track classroom teachers. They don't track any other certified professional or specialist in a school district as to whether or not they're in at work or they're not at work for whatever reason. So in the middle of that page, so I went back after I got Mr. Littlefield's email of about a week ago. I went back and I looked at the leave of absence request for the 21, 22, 21, 22, 23 year, the 23 year. And what you see there is for Peacedale, there were 6 leave of absence requests for a total of 410 days. That's quite substantial. And those are the different specialists, or you have 2 reading specialists, a special ed teacher, a math coach. And those are very critical people. What I didn't see though, and I don't know if this is even possible when you're in the some of these were like late December, early January where they started. I don't know if it's possible for a school district after you're that far into a year, if you have somebody that goes out in a um, long-term absence, if you can hire somebody to replace them. Because what I didn't see is any sign that happened. So maybe that there are so few of them around that you can't do that. And then the rest of them are West Kingston had 3 requests, and then Broad Rock had 7 for 280 days. So anyway, so I want to apologize profusely to those teachers who I'm aligned by saying that Peacedale had an absentee issue problem, not knowing what the reason for them not being in school was until I did this research this past week. So that's the end of my, so lastly, so this page, the last page is a look at a comparison of the 2018-19 RICAS scores for the state of Rhode Island against the latest one in 22-23. And what you notice is when you get down to South Kingstown, it says we're tied for 9th in the state as far as the total math and ELA score, which is the next third from the right column. It's 995. But for me, the critical number is the one to its left. That's -8. What that shows is from the year before the pandemic to last year, our total score for the ELA for our students was a total of 8 points below what it was in 2018, 2019. And if you go down the rest of the sheet, the first time you see a number of greater than -8 is Warwick at -22, and they're tied for 20th. And if you look above where we are, you can see a couple of the school districts in Rhode Island where their numbers were flipped, and they're actually higher now. So just food for thought. All right, about done here. I'm jumping over to school bond. The only as of last week's local newspapers, there's only been one letter to the papers, and that was by someone who said vote no.
Excuse
I'm-
me, Mr. Beasley. Your time is up. Your time is up.
Okay, this is the good stuff.
Is it?
Yeah, this is the
Okay.
good stuff.
Right.
One more minute.
I think Mr. Beasley wants to give us some positive feedback.
Okay. So, I'm imploring you guys to start writing some letters and get them in the papers. You only got like 6 weeks left. Not even that. No, yeah, about 6 weeks. So that's all I'm going to say on that one. Now, I asked Brian Sylvia on the school on the funding for the $150 million budget bond. And I asked him a question about 2 weeks ago, and I said, if it goes as planned, if it passes in May and it's a go, when would, and the way it's structured, the finances, when would the town be able to go out and get another bond to fix the rest of our other 4 schools? Now, because today they had like between $40 and $50 million worth of issues. And he said July of 2035. Now, that'll be like a decade. That's a long time. And by the time that 40 and $50 million problem is going to be like 65 to 80. The only way, he said, there is one way that you can drop that down. You could drop it down almost by half. But it requires the school district and the town council to come into an agreement that somehow, some way, you can reduce property tax transfer. Now, there's one way you can do it, and it's the way you can save money. It's my last thing, and it's transportation. I've talked to Mr. Mahoney about this briefly, and I've said it before, but I really, really mean this. Their transportation costs this coming year are $6 million. They go up about 4% a year. So by the end of this decade, they're going to be $7 million. You need to get into the bus business seriously. If you put aside $1 million a year for the next 5 years, that $5 million lump sum of money and the money that you would pay for the next year, even like $6 million some dollars, at $11 million, right? That'll buy all the buses you need. It'll pay for the drivers and the monitors and a couple mechanics, because electric school buses are very, there's no engine. It's just, okay. And that $7 million you're going to be paying in 2030, you could be paying like $3 million. $3 million, I'm guessing, for your transportation cost a year instead of 7.
Thank you,
Thank
Doral.
you, Mr. Beasley.
Thank you. So, we don't have any other names on the list for community comments. So anybody out there in the audience that would like to come up that did not sign up to speak? Okay, so we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda.
So,
Well, we
Madam,
do have,
I would like to have item 4D removed from the consent agenda.
take that off, and then we will need a motion to approve the top 3 A to C. And then we can
All right,
discuss that.
So can I just get a clarification? Do you want it removed? Do you want it moved to school committee business?
yes, I would like to make a motion to move 4D to school committee business.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay,
I'll
now
make a-
we need a motion to approve the top 3 items.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda for A, B, and C.
Second,
Aye.
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 Taken out of, and then let's get, 'cause I would love to have the student presentation going also, so if we can just go in order.
That's fine. The committee can take up 4D as it was moved to school committee business. And we can just move that to the end of the school committee business item. So correct. So you were going to be moving on to the to item A under school committee business. The consent agenda, as currently situated, was passed with that last motion.
Do
So, okay, so moving on to, committee business. We will discuss 2024 spring coaching positions, right? Yes. My little bit of confusion up here. We are going on to school committee business, item A. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to retain an outside investigator as recommended by legal counsel to conduct an investigation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a discussion with a student presentation. I would like to invite Abigail up here to the podium.
Everyone. My name is Abby and I'm a seventh grader at Quest Montessori School. I am currently working on a project regarding the middle and high school start times in South Kingstown as part of my school curriculum. The issue of the start times has been a cause to concern for me, as I believe that any start time before 8 a.m. is not ideal or healthy for students. Sleep in teens is very important, though most do not get enough sleep, partially due to the early start time. The CDC states that teens need between 8 and 10 hours of sleep per day, though only 6 in 10 middle schoolers and 7 in 10 high schoolers meet this recommendation. Sleep is also very beneficial to teens' mental health, as it can help with any anxiety that they are experiencing. As a prospective high school student planning to join South Kingstown High School in 2025, I'm particularly invested in this topic. Currently, California is the only state that has implemented a law requiring all middle schools a start time no earlier than 8 a.m. and all high schools a start time no earlier than 8:30 a.m. According to recent interviews with some of California's students, student absences and tardiness has gone down, and attention and focus has improved. While this is not guaranteed to happen for our schools, I previously asked one of my friends, who is a current student at Broad Rock Middle School and who will be attending South Kingstown High School, how she would feel about a later start time, and she agreed that it would be very beneficial and helpful. Though there are a lot of pros to the later start time, there is one issue that it would bring up, and it is the busing schedule with the elementary school. Since the middle and high school have a earlier start time, they take the buses first, and then the elementary school uses some of those same buses later. If the middle and high school start times were pushed back, the busing schedule the busing schedule would have to be changed, and there may not be enough buses for all the students. However, there is one possible solution to this, and as I was looking at the busing schedule currently, there are some bus runs that only have a couple students and a couple stops for them. So if we could have these buses pick up more students, we may be able to solve this problem with the busing and pick up all students. I really hope something will be done about the start times for the middle and high school in South Kingstown, and how beneficial it would be for any students attending Broad Rock Middle School or South Kingstown High School. Thank you.
Thank you for taking your time to come out and talk to the full school committee tonight about your concerns about a later school start time. I will tell you that this has been an ongoing conversation with our wellness committee, and it's still an ongoing conversation. It's going to be a lot of work. right? But I don't want you to get discouraged because I'm a parent of young students just like you, middle school, high school, and it's a big fight, as Miss Lauren has said already, every single morning. So I'm looking forward to trying to make this happen as well. So thank you again for coming out and being very brave to do it all by yourself and, getting up in front of a group of people. Takes a lot of courage. So thank you. Ms. Matson, please.
Abby, I'd like to also concur with Ms. Whitford. I've been talking with Ms. Weinstock for many years about the start time. The Wellness Subcommittee has been also researching it for years. We have discussions with Barrington School committee members, East Greenwich. I know Narragansett has shifted their time, not as drastically as would be ideal, but I know that that move has been made. So the conversation will be ongoing, and I hope you continue to be an advocate. And I truly hope that as the discussion continues, that we will reach out and include you as part of the conversation and any other students who want to have a voice to it, because it's quite important. So I appreciate you coming out and speaking in front of all of us.
Boyd?
I will echo the same. Abigail, thank you for being here tonight. It is, having been on the other side and spoken at the podium as well, it is a daunting task sometimes to be the voice on an issue that's important to you. So thank you for doing that and for your family's support on that issue. It is also something, as I look at both transportation and wellness, that I'd love to see us continue the conversation on. Perhaps it's a summer conversation as we potentially have a new high school, an attractive opportunity for new students and input, and to be able to say, how might we really look at our district in a creative way and have an opportunity to make sure that our students excel. So thank you for bringing it to us tonight.
So I think if this were easy, you would have done it already. So maybe some of you could speak to some of the challenges so that we're aware of what things need to be overcome.
Happy to talk a little bit about that, only because we've faced it a number of times. So I want to say it was probably 12 years ago, and it may be more by now, but to Ms. Lauren's point, a survey went out to the district and the immediate reaction was, oh my gosh, no, we can't do that. How am I going to have childcare? What's going to happen to sports? And it just was an immediate pushback. And so it kind of went by the wayside. But we've since communicated with, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Karen Witherall, and she works with the Healthy Schools Coalition. She actually participated with Barrington in the movement to overcome the obstacles. And she would be a great resource for us. I know a lot of the pushback does revolve around the sunlight when it comes to sports, and making sure that there's, if some schools have the later start time and some don't, what does that look like? But we all know that the number one priority should be academics. So the conversation, it's a robust conversation. It can be done, it can be overcome. And I think as long as we communicate and connect with the right people, we can see what we can do for it. And I think Ms. Boyd's point is wonderful, in that we're in the process of transforming the school district over these next 3 to 5 years. So I wouldn't want to wait that long, but at the same time, we're making moves to make changes. So it only makes sense.
Ms. Better?
So I'm just kind of wondering where this responsibility should lie. Is it with wellness? Is it with a special subcommittee? I know when Mr. McCarthy was the principal at the high school, we had a separate, I was actually part of that subcommittee to look at this. I mean, I'm just wondering, what is the best way to facilitate really truly looking at this again? And I'm okay with if it's a special subcommittee or if it's wellness or if another place that this lies, but I think we need to give it a responsibility someplace to make sure we move it forward.
I totally agree with you, Miss Better. And I think that's just the work that we have before us to try to make this work. Mr. Vestivo, did you have your hand up? Okay, Mr. Schiff.
I did, but I think, Mr. Shearer also wanted to say something, so I'll go after him.
Okay, Mr.
Well,
Schiff.
then you can respond to what I'm gonna say. So I also have a middle schooler who struggles every morning. So I feel it, and I think, it is time for this to have a home somewhere, someone who decides how this is gonna move forward. In my mind, the transportation piece is the hardest for me to figure out, which might be why I'm asking Mr. Estivo to respond to me about the transportation subcommittee looking at this and really giving us get our hands around a little bit what that really means to change the transportation system, which is already very complicated and expensive. Because that seems like a huge stumbling block. But I'd like to see the wellness committee move it forward. And I also think that as we're searching for a superintendent, we need to find someone who is going to lead important changes like this, who is going to be able to move public opinion if it needs to be moved, but also focus on what's most important, which is the health and wellness of our students and their ability to learn. I think sports are important, and it's the reason some kids come to school, but if they take a nap in between school and their practice because they don't get enough sleep at night, then we're sort of defeating the whole purpose of that enriching experience. So I think it's time for us to try to accelerate the process.
Yeah, I'm in concurrence across the board here as far as doing the work to make this happen. I can speak from my experience. I've been hearing this since I was in high school, some number of years ago. And my English teacher, and especially, she was a big proponent of this. It just never got off the ground. It always kind of stuck with me that this is something we should do. And here we are these years later, and still something other districts have figured out. So I think we can look to those and get something going that's going to work. But to Mrs. Shearer's point, and to Abigail's point, the busing situation is going to be one of the hardest nuts to crack here, I think, because you do have those overlapping times. So, what do we do? Push the elementary school back in concurrence with those other late times? Those are things we'll need to figure out. I'm happy to, take on some of that work with the transportation committee, but I also do agree with Ms. Vetter, maybe a special committee that encompasses all those elements of wellness, transportation, other factors we're not coming up with at the moment need to be taken into consideration. So I think it does cut across multiple parts of what we do here. And I think I would be on board with having a special committee to look at this and see how we can get it in place, what the hurdles are, what we can do to overcome those hurdles. Because I do think it's important. Don't have middle schooler yet, but my son is in 4th grade. We'll be going to 5th grade, and he'll be there very soon. So certainly, certainly something top of mind for me as well.
On the topic of transportation, I just wanted to put two things on your radar. And this is as somebody with lived experience as a parent doing this every day. I see Ms. Taylor sitting here. I wave to her every morning when I drop my son off at exactly 7:40 in the morning in Broad Rock School, and he gets stopped at the stairwell and gets his tardy slip. I will say a couple things. One, part of the reason why so many people are driving their kids to school, to the high school and the middle school, is because school starts too early and the buses therefore come too early. My kid gets another half an hour of sleep every day, which is a significant amount in terms of total sleep that children get by not taking the bus. So there you go right away. The school start times is driving reduced usage of the buses. I will also say, having had a student who did go to Curtis Corner, I experienced the 2-stop Curtis Corner route, right? You had Curtis Corner to Broad Rock. And then when Curtis Corner closed, now you have a separate route of buses to the high school, separate route to Broad Rock. I don't see any reason why you can't combine a Broad Rock and high school bus route. As it was, there were so many absences of the bus driver on my daughter's middle school bus that she was often on a high school bus anyway. It was a combined middle school, high school bus. It was fine. And then the last piece about that, which relates to combining Broad Rock and high school into one bus route, is right now the 10-minute window between the start times of those schools for parents who have children in both of those schools is way too tight. So most of the time my daughter gets to the high school on time. It's my son who is tardy because we literally cannot get from the high school to Broad Rock within that window of time because there's so much traffic, because so many people are bypassing the bus to drive their kids to school. So I really do believe that all of this would be improved if the middle school and high school started later, because more people would use the bus because their kids would get an adequate night's sleep. So I just really felt like that was important to say.
So I've been on the school committee for 12 years. And this topic has been on our radar for 12 years. Personally, I think it's high time that we did something about it for all of the reasons that have been mentioned by Abigail and by Ms. Weinstock and by all my colleagues here at the school committee table. One thing that has not been mentioned that I've heard in my 12 years here sitting at the table as a pushback against, and I don't agree with it. I'm going to say that up front. I don't agree with it. There are some families who are reluctant to have mixed age groups of youngsters on the bus together. I don't get that. But I also would comment that in my former life as a high school teacher, I had parents who had an absolute conniption fit when they found out that their freshman was in the same math class as a junior. It would, like, they would go, "You mean there's juniors in this class?" They would go absolutely wild. So I just can imagine those same parents would really have a conniption fit if their middle school kid was on a bus with a high school kid. When I went to South Kingstown schools, and yes, there were buses then, we didn't take horse and buggy. We were on the bus, middle school and high school kids were on the bus together. And when my brother went to this school, it was grades 7 to 12. And nobody fared the worse. I think it's time we need to bring it together. I agree with my colleagues here at the table about, I think we need a subcommittee. I think I think transportation and wellness have enough on their plate, and there's so much crossover that I think we need a subcommittee that will look at this issue and look at all the ramifications of it. And we may be calling on you for more input in the future if we do that.
Okay. If there's no further discussion on that, I'd like us to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a discussion and action on the transportation subcommittee appointment of a member. James.
Thank you, Ms. Whitford. The Transportation Subcommittee had someone leave the community member leave their seat a while back, and we've been trying to get the process going to get a new member appointed. We finally have a new member who has submitted a letter of interest and is interested in being on the committee. His name is Tim LaRose. He did come to the last meeting, but he was not able to come to the full committee meeting tonight. So I based on his letter of intent and what I know of him, I would recommend to appoint him as a new member on the Transportation Subcommittee.
Is there any discussion? Does anybody have any questions for James? No. Okay, so in light of the fact that we have been trying to make this appointment for several months now. And that we only have one interested person in this position. I would feel comfortable making that appointment tonight and appointing this individual to the subcommittee for transportation. But I would like also to have a motion at the table for a vote to approve the appointment.
James, I'm happy to make that motion. Could you remind me, the agenda's not loading properly right now, what his name is?
His name's Timothy LaRose.
Taylor LaRose.
Tim LaRose.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Tim LaRose to the Transportation Subcommittee.
Second.
Any further, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is a discussion and an action for a fundraiser for the South Kingston High School Music Department and Fine Arts Boosters. It is a mattress sale. I would turn that over to Ms. Myers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You do have before you, the South Kingstown High School Music Department Fine Arts Booster. Contact person is Mr. Muir at the high school. My understanding is this mattress sale, has happened in the past and it's a quite popular event. Superintendent Littlefield has reviewed this as well, and, we ask that the school committee provide approval for this fundraiser.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the South Kingston High School Department Fine Arts Boosters mattress sale.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a discussion and action on the educational survey for equity and inclusion service.
No, we have to go back one. We missed E.
I'm working off the web and it's not working.
Once again, I do apologize. I skipped over item E. It is a discussion and action on our cultural homestay international exchange student application to attend South Kingstown schools. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the Cultural Homestay International Student Application as submitted.
Second.
Aye.
I just want to say that I think it's absolutely wonderful that a family is willing to host an international student. I think it brings something great to our community to have somebody from another culture come in and share that with all the students of our high school. So I just really want to thank this family for taking on this and bringing this to the greater community. So that's what I just wanted to say.
I'm just gonna piggyback on what you're saying because this particular family, this is their second year and hosting a student. So I really think it's great too. It's a great opportunity for all involved. So again, thanks to the family, and we do have a motion. So is everybody in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, which is item F, is now the discussion and action on educational survey for equity and inclusion services. Do we have a motion?
I have a personal preference. I guess I could start by making a motion to select one. So I would make a motion that we accept the proposal from Westwind Educational Policy.
Second.
there any discussion on that?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
better.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate kind of our last meeting that, you know, I was concerned about the short timeline for West Wind. But having gone back and looked at it and listening to others' comments on West Wind, I've come to kind of like, listen and figure out that maybe I can learn something. And I concur with Brad. I think that they really do have a strong proposal.
The preference I had for them was primarily around having in-person sessions with people here rather than Zoom, which was the preferred method of the others. I think there's some value to having at least one Zoom session for people who have difficulty accessing our physical facilities or have, we find this in the special education subcommittee that a lot of parents with kids in special education might have difficulty finding a babysitter, might not have other people who can take care of their kids, and then Zoom becomes preferred. So some of that is good, but I don't think 100%. I don't know about the timeline. I don't know what the right amount of time to do this is because I don't know enough about it. I do like the fact that we'll have this back before our next budget cycle. So I'm concerned about a 12-month period that puts us again, yet another, kind of 2 budget cycles behind in being able to respond to whatever they tell us.
So one thing with a short timeline, if it takes longer, there's room for that, right? I don't think they're going to meet this timeline. I think it is too short, but I don't think that's a reason to not support their proposal.
I would echo the support of West Wind. I also felt strongly about Mid-Atlantic. I had them rated very closely for similar reasons, but Mr. Shear brought up a great point about the contact with the community. If we approve this evening, one of my questions to West Wind down the road, and I do think we have room to be able to speak with them, let them learn our community. They've, in their credentials, apparently done that very well in other places, be able to sort of think about what they proposed as some of their focus groups and structure in working with South Kingstown. I think it would be helpful for them to understand our history and why we're asking for this a little bit more. And I think that is part of the process of working together. But again, I support their fundamental approach and some of the tools that they mentioned, again, align with some of the work that I do at the University of Rhode Island. So they see them as a very valuable resource, contemporary, and doing excellent work in this area. And I think it would be a tremendous asset for our district.
Any further, Mr. Estiva?
Yeah, since I get to talk about this last meeting. Yeah, I did. I think I rated Mid-Atlantic just a little bit higher, but it's honestly not even, it's so close. I don't think we can go wrong with either one of these choices. And to Mr. Shear's point, having the in-person meetings, I think is going to be highly valuable for this type of work. So I would be come out in favor of West Wind as well.
West Wind and Mid-Atlantic neck and neck. And like my colleagues here at the table, the in-person meetings swayed me over to West Wind, so I can support that as the choice for our equity audit.
So, just everybody has said the same thing that I was thinking, in regards to West Wing. So, I think we could just take that vote at this time. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, that motion passes. We will be going with West Wing for our equity audit. Next item on the agenda is a discussion and action, the superintendent search, NESDEC, and its appointment of members. I will pass that on to Ms. Better.
Okay, so first of all, I have an update. So the application timeframe for submitting applications for the superintendent closed yesterday. And I am pleased to say that we had 23 applications from 9 states. The highest state was Rhode Island, but a lot from New England, and one as far as Kansas and one in Kentucky. So there was some far-reaching applicants, so it's very good. So moving strongly forward. And I am sorry, I did not print out the list of, we approved, I believe there was only one to be announced. Oh, thank you. So do you, there was one person for the, I believe it was William Hodge the third that still needs to be approved. Thank you. So I would like to make a motion to add to the screening committee, Mr. William Hodge the third.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Better. I am like wow over here because of the amount of candidates that we have. And I think it's amazing. So, but you got a lot of work. Thank you. So we're gonna move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a discussion and action review of the school improvement team roster.
Seeing it on.
So I mean, we all have this document in front of us. We've all been able to look at it. It looks like each school has its team and all of the roles are filled. So it does have an action to it, so I'm assuming we need a motion to approve.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the school improvement team rosters, as long as we can discuss for a second before we vote.
I'll second that.
So,
Now we're heading to-
so I'm absolutely so impressed with the number of folks who have stepped up to be on these teams. It is incredible to see. Reflecting on years past when people didn't understand, I don't think, the importance of the school improvement team. And I think we finally driven that point home. So it's super impressive to see some of the names I recognize, some of them I don't. There's a wide variety of folks from all facets of our community and both school, parent, business. It's really impressive to see. I also, however, see my name on the list for the high school and I need it to be removed. And so I'm sure there needs to be some updating there, just in general, but, my name, yeah, as a school committee member, I'm not going to be participating on that. I think my name was just kind of held over from my years of sitting on that school, on that role. So, other than that, I'm super impressed with it and, happy to see.
Echoing the same, as someone who worked on the policy for the changes for school improvement teams, it is vital that as we figure out and work to really have these teams do the robust job that they're asked to do, we certainly need the support of the folks who are listed here and parents. I would hope that we could approve the list here. Again, I'm looking through and want a minute to do that, but then also want to ensure that we leave the door open for others who might want to join as their schedules allow. Flexibility has been a huge issue, and certainly some of the teams are larger than others. And there's, I hope, space for continued parent involvement as we go forward. So that would be my only request tonight, is that we continue to reach out to families who might want to be involved as the next school year starts, and perhaps they have additional space or time and understand the role a little bit more.
For a question. It's my understanding that these school improvement team membership comes before the school committee annually.
That's correct, Ms. Brusso?
So, when they get revised for the following school year, then they'll come back before us, and that certainly opens the door for additional participation from the community members and from parents and guardians.
I'm a little concerned if Kate didn't know her name was on this list. Are there others that don't know their name is on this list? Yeah, so I'm thinking this is premature. I think they need to go back and have a second look and maybe bring a final list that they've concurred that people really want to remain on this list.
The motion, or it can be I'm assuming it can be tabled.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the matter can be tabled. As far as the motion is concerned, I would feel comfortable if you make a motion to rescind.
Motion to rescind my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Now you would need a motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table the review of the school improvement team rosters to our next meeting while the rosters get refined.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. The school improvement team rosters should come back to us at our next meeting in hopes that it still looks as impressive as it does right now. So with that, we'll move on to the next agenda on our item, on our list. I mean, next item on our agenda, I don't know what's wrong. So that is a discussion on the Peacedale Elementary School playground update. Mr. Brian Mahoney, facilities director.
Hopefully. Should I wait for Michelle to get back and Alexis, or you guys want me to start going? Okay. I'm gonna bring the microphone with me. First of all, thank you for having me tonight to present this. And I'll start off with, I want to say hello to my family, Katie, Brian, Rosie, and Maddie. They think I'm a celebrity because they see me on YouTube at our building committee meetings and they see me here. So they think anybody on a tablet or video is a celebrity. So at home, I'm a superstar.
I'm gonna make sure no one is yelling at you.
I appreciate that. Yes, yes. My daughter
We're
last year thought
celebrating-
she
we're
was crying.
celebrating
Yes,
you.
yes.
Brian
I have great
Mahoney is number
news.
one.
Okay, so here are the final renderings for the Peacedale Playground. What we did was we put out a survey with all the color schemes to the Peacedale administration and to the parent-teacher group the parent group. And we came up with a color palette, worked with Game Time, got their suggestions on what they thought would be the right selections, what'll last us a long time. Because again, we want to, from the beginning of this, get the most use out of this and get the best possible playground we can for the kids. So this is just the basic aerial view that I presented you in the past with the new color scheme of the pre-K playground in the front, the ADA seesaw, the climbing ninja course structure, and then the large 5 slide structure. Next slide, please. So here's again the new color scheme. It's a blue scheme. I don't remember the exact color. There's about 35 different blues to choose from. And this is the one they did that everyone decided they liked with the gray accents on all the beam pieces.
So
on the
here in
wall.
Rhode Island, we call that Keene blue.
Keene blue. There we go. There we go. We can go to the next slide, please. This is the side view of the large structure. Again, showing all the different slides, the climbing features, and along the sides, you'll notice some of the more details of different areas they added on in the final rendering of what this is truly what we'll be getting, that will be getting shipped in the coming weeks. Next slide. The opposite view, this would be on the field side of the playground. Again, representing some more climbing structures, a rock wall, and the other slides. I was going to say this later, but I will say it now. It's on record. Mr. Littlefield would like the first ride down the biggest slide. So that will be part of when we open this playground up. Mr. Littlefield will have the first ride down this one, the twisty slide. Yeah, yeah. Next slide, please. And then this is showing the pre-K structure with the seesaw in the background here. And I think that is that the last one? Okay, perfect. So we'll leave that one up and then I'll go over.
Brian, can I ask you a question? And you
Yeah.
may answer this, and so you can just tell me to wait. But I'm curious how, like with the slides, most of them are enclosed. Is that a safety standard, or is that just how like they like it better?
Safety standard. Looking back at some of the older playgrounds around that were open, especially big slides. There is still big slides that are open. The West Kingston playfields, that playground, the town playground went in a few years ago. That is a pretty tall slide, but that's all worked into the safety aspects of how much the lip comes up on the side. But for safety and being a school, especially, you don't want students climbing up to the top of one of those slides with the, if it has an overhang over it, it keeps everybody going down the slide, not up the slide. In theory. Okay, so pull up my notes. Second. Okay.
You're gonna say this, but I'm curious to know when this is all gonna stop taking place.
That's why I have a whole breakdown right here for you. So I spoke to Game Time today and it will be shipped on April 15th, which is the first day of our vacation. It's coming from Fort Payne, Alabama. So it should arrive roughly on the 17th of April. What they usually do is they usually do the install a week to 10 days later, but I am working with them to try and speed that process up. so that we can capture a few of the days towards the end of the vacation or even the Saturday of vacation to get the install moving. Once the install date is locked in, my team will assist with assistance from the town. We'll bring down the old structure within a day of the day or two of the new structure going up. Again, trying to maximize getting this new structure in and less downtime for that area. And we will be, like we did with the last structure, keeping pieces to reuse in other playgrounds, whether in the district or if the town facilities would also like some of the pieces. The installer will need 3 to 4 days to install and then certify the installation. In coordination with our installer from Game Time, my team will install the new edge material. Going around the whole playground right now, we have wooden beams that have been rotting away, and bees decided to make their home there, a large amount this year. For the first time, Mr. Wilkinson, our head custodian there, has been there for over 20 years, and he was shocked this year by how many pockets of bees, which had never been an issue in 20 years. So we did put in for a grant with the trust, a safety grant to get $1,000 towards that. Unfortunately, we would not win that award. But we tried. So during the installation of the new playground, again, that'll be my team. We'll be working hand in hand to put the new edge material up. And then we'll also be putting in fresh mulch, the certified mulch that we use at all of our playgrounds. So that when this does open it up, it'll be fully ready to go. I've also worked with the leadership team at Kingstown to discuss alternate plans and locations for the time being while we are doing this work, for using the field and having field day activities, or using the outside classroom on the other side of the building, or doing something special on the blacktop for the students for different recess periods. So we have already kind of been planning that out for when students are back in session. Again, they will, while this is being installed, there'll be full safety fencing around. This will be a fully safe installation that are all up to standards from Game Time and from the town side. Also, as part of this, talking about this space, I have been working with the PTO and the leadership Kingstown of a potential move of the current garden that is in that area. So that would expand, it wouldn't expand our actual playground footprint, but it'll give us more play space out there with the beds moving to a different location on the site so that they would have kind of their own space that's safely away. Because part of that discussion was with the growth of that program and trying to get the kids interactive with the outdoor learning in the garden and mixing that into this new playground space. And if additional fencing would go up, and we thought the safest, most prudent decision was to give them a certain space on the property and to give the playground its own space, which would then add more of a play area for all the kids. And then just to go over the costs, the mulch we've already budgeted for. We budgeted for that yearly. The edging, we already have a budgeted line item. We will be using it for that, for the land improvement of replacing that edging that has come to the end of its useful life. And the only other anticipated cost is a dumpster, which will be a pretty small cost for our end of the project. So does anyone have any questions or?
It's not a question.
Okay.
It's a statement. I want to thank you for a job well done on this project. And I know the kids are going to be very, very excited when they come back from vacation and they see all this fencing up, wondering what is going on behind that fence, right?
Yeah.
So it's very exciting for me. So I know it's going to be exciting for them. And I'm looking forward to the day when it actually opens up, because I might join Mr.
Definitely.
Littlefield with a slide down the slide.
We have about, so there's a double slide, so we have about there's about 7 slides. So I mean, there's a lot of,
I'll be at
everybody
the
going
bottom.
down.
I'll be at
You
the
know?
bottom taking pictures.
There
I'm
you
not going down.
You know, 4 people fit on the seesaw, so four for
Well,
seesaw.
it's really time that the school committee did something like that, because we do have a lot of administrators and teachers and et cetera that are making time to do something fun to represent our school district. So it's time. So maybe this will be it. But again, thank you. I really appreciate your work. with a lot of hard work.
So I have a question.
I-
Is there like a, so you have a timeline and an install schedule. Is there some sort of like, do we have a plan yet as far as like an opening day or a ribbon cutting ceremony or something to the effect to really kick it off?
Once I have the final, everything final from game time of the exact day the installer will be there, I think we can pick a opening day. The only caveat they did tell me was the rain. They won't install if it's raining. So if we run into 2 days of good install and then they stop for a day, so it might push it. So if we then choose a day, the following Friday or something, or but that's really the only thing that would slow us down. My guys will work in the rain. Game time will not. My guys are awesome.
Again, Mr. Mahoney, I want to say thank you. You have educated me on what it takes to install a playground, and you have done a tremendous amount of research as well as securing the grant to make this a reality for our kids. So I know it was a very popular question from families and students. And you mentioned you were a bit of celebrity to your own family. I will tell you that of all the school committee business I have been a part of in my time here, my daughter feels this is the most important issue, including the color of the blue that is selected. So on behalf of a P-Stale student, thank you, thank you.
Actually, I was going to say the same thing because I think it's wonderful that we have this opportunity to bring this to the students in this school. They deserve it. They've gone way too long without having any equipment like this to play on. Thank you and your team. And also that you did this with securing grants to do it affordably for the district. So this is a win-win-win for our kids. So thank you so much.
And that's a good example too. Again, I've been here for 5 years. I love to do anything that we can give back to the kids, but a good example of looking at our playgrounds, we built them many years ago, but Mr. Rapport at Peacedale, his wife went to Peacedale and she was on that same playground roughly 30 years ago. So
Okay, she deserves the first ride down there.
no, I just want to thank you guys for your support and Mrs. Myers and Mr. Littlefield, again, with their leadership and Mr. Kilpatrick coming on board and his leadership, they really, they deserve a lot of the credit too for this, because without them, this wouldn't have happened. So, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Agenda is an update for the school building committee. I don't know if Ms. Messinesi has anything for us tonight.
So trying to think as far as the school building committee update, there was a short update given last night at the town council meeting by the town manager. We are currently going out for RFQ/P for the construction manager at risk, who will work with our architect, engineering design team along with the school building committee. I want to give a little bit of so that people understand what that means, construction manager at risk. Chris Spiegel does a really great job, much more eloquent job than I do at explaining this because it's his business. As Miss Boyd learned lots about playground construction from Mr. Mahoney, I'm also learning about a lot of construction concepts that I'm definitely not in my wheelhouse. But what is interesting about the construction manager at risk, and one of the reasons why we want to get them on board as soon as possible, is because we get to, once we bring this individual on, they can work to, they basically give an estimate as far as how much things are going to cost material wise, work wise. And then we get, as long as we can do it right, we lock in at a particular price. And that's where our numbers won't go over. So if they give us a recommendation and they say, this is what X is going to cost, that's what it's going to cost for us. And it goes over, the construction manager is at risk for that overage. It does not fall to us. It does not equate to higher overages with our costs. So that's why we're urgently trying to get that filled before before the bond vote, because we want all these contracts similar to the architect and engineering team. We want these contracts ready to go on May 8th if the bond is approved. So we are putting together an interview team, and that is similar to when we went out for the interview process with the architect and engineer. And the team is going to be still 7 folks. The makeup is a little bit different because we had such community input as far as interest in wanting to be part of this team. So we're going to have 4 community members, 2 building committee members, and 1 town councilor. The next town council meeting is April 8th. And that is when the town council is going to appoint which one of their members is going to be part of that team. And if I'm not mistaken, April 8th is also the last day that applications for the construction manager at risk, that's the deadline for applications. And then that team will start the process that we went through for the architect and engineering team. So that will all start right about then. 2 other points. We have actually a couple other points. We are planning on holding, at minimum right now, we're planning for 2 town hall forum type community feedback sessions. One we are planning for April 11th at 6 p.m. at the high school, and April 20th at 9 a.m. Also at the high school. These will be similar to the visioning sessions that Studio Jade did over the course of the past year. Where there will be in person, but they will be live streamed. There will be interactivity with different voting capability and participation in the presentations. We're getting into more detail as far as putting those together. We're working with Studio Jade and Slam Collaborative and Left Field to make the big information boards that we're going to try to post around town that gives information about the bond, about the vote, about the plans, and about these forums. And we're going to try to scatter those around town at many of our public municipal buildings and other key spots in the community. I think I'm hitting all the points. There's just been a lot of discussion lately. Our meetings have been very concise, however, so if you take the opportunity to watch on our YouTube channel, we do a good job of keeping it to about an hour. Very rarely do we go over. So myself and Mr. Mahoney will be in attendance at most of the town council meetings going forward to make sure we can ensure that information that is being shared is factual. We do have our SKSchoolproject.com website that has all the facts and all the information. I will bring to light that there is a flyer that has been going around town, stuffed in people's mailboxes and attached to people's windshields. The information is not entirely accurate. And we do have right on the front page of the SKSchoolproject.com website, there is a link referring to that flyer that gives the accurate information that if people have any questions or concerns. So I think I've covered all my bases, but we will be at the next town council meeting along with Chris Spiegel from Left Field on, I want to verify that it's April 8th before I say that date again. Yep, April 8th, 7 o'clock. We'll be there. People want to tune in and get more information.
Better.
First of all, Kate, I want to thank you. You put on a lot of work, and I am just grateful that you for your dedication to this project. It's really great to have somebody with their knowing the school programs are at the core of this, and you've done a great job. So thank you. Also, Chris Littlefield, Spiegel, thank you. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm a little out of it tonight. Chris from Left Field, Spiegel. He's been so responsive, and I just think we did a great job when we picked the OPM. So he's been great, and I'm really glad that he's been able to answer people's questions, especially on that flyer that has misinformation. And I just hate it when there's misinformation out there. So it's great that he's been able to immediately respond to that. But then I have a question for you. Will we have any work product to show the community from Jade and Slam before May 7th?
And that was a question that has come up a couple times. We have discussed with Phil Conti from Studio Jade. I did have and Brian, we had the luxury and the honor of meeting with our Slam Collaborative folks, who will actually be the head architects responsible for the project. We were able to meet them via quick Monday morning Zoom meeting just to get faces with names. And we're hoping that in upcoming meetings that they'll be able to join us and or the town council or joint or school building, however that's going to look. And we will, which is one of the reasons why we brought them on ahead of time, is so that they could continue the work that Phil had already started, but actually getting into the schematic design. And so they're going to start putting together less concept and more tangible product. So those boards that we can envision putting around town, hopefully will have some of those renderings, and then just different iterations going forward all the way through May.
I just think it'll help people that if they can really see the concept of what that they're getting. I mean, it's a high price tag. Our students deserve this building. But I think anything we can do to give the community the most information possible is so necessary. So I'm really glad that they'll be able to do that.
So the last item, no. So we have two more items on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is the 24-25 annual calendar. This calendar, I believe, came to us before, and there was some issue with the color. No. Ah, okay. All right. So we have a draft in front of us. Ms. Maya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have a calendar before you for the 24-25 school year. Just a few things to bring to your attention. The first day of school for our students will be after Labor Day on Tuesday, September 3rd. In August, August 26th will be new teacher orientation. The 27th will be orientation day for all of our staff. And then the 28th will be the professional learning day. There is the primary day and the election day, which have to be contemplated in a calendar this year. And that is reflected in both September and November. Parent-teacher conferences are on December 10th. And much like we did last year, that day is split with middle and high school students attending school, elementary students not. And then the other day of that is that's May 22nd for Senior Project Day, where high school students won't be attending, but elementary schools students will. The Thanksgiving holiday has Wednesday off. And as we look into the December break, the last day of school for students and staff will be December 20th. Last day of school is also on June 20th. And I think I highlighted all of those important dates for you and happy to answer any questions you may have.
First of all, I want to thank you for having the holiday of Juneteenth. I think it's very important. And I'm glad the district is doing that. I am concerned with the last day of school being the 20th. You have a day off. How many kids are actually going to be on school on that day? So I guess I'm conflicted with having the Wednesday before Thanksgiving off Because if you don't, then you don't have to go that last extra day after June 19th. So to me, it makes sense to go to school on Wednesday before Thanksgiving and actually have the last day on the 18th of June. I just think it just makes more sense.
Christiva?
I agree with Ms. Better. I think it'd be better to make that last day of school the 18th rather than the 20th. However, we do that. I think at the 27th of November, it's doesn't necessarily need to be a day off. I actually did have a question. Could it be a half day, and would that count as a learning day? A half day won't count?
No.
Okay.
no, The Rhode Island Department of Education doesn't allow for that.
Okay. Okay. So, but yeah, doubly so, not only having the holiday before the last day of school, if we have any snow days whatsoever, now we're going into the week of the 23rd, which, as this town knows, that's the first week of summer camps. So I think that would be, I would prefer if we could figure out how we can get it the last day on the 18th of June, however that happens.
It gets vetted by our bargaining units before it comes to us, am I correct?
That's correct, Ms. Russo.
I have a tendency to lean into just starting off with an approval of the draft. So that it can always change going forward. As we know, it ends up being a living document throughout the year. And as we move forward, changes are often brought to us that we have to vet and review. To Ms. Brusso's point, I know the administrative team works very closely with the teacher leadership team to come to this, and it's typically their working calendar and their schedule. And so I have a tendency to while I do agree with the statements, to lean into approving it as it's presented to us, and then let our administrative team move forward with different conversations over time with the teachers. I'll make a motion to approve the school year 24-25 calendar as is presented.
Second.
All of it, Ms. Better?
So I just need to ask, Mrs. Meyer, is this something we have to pass, or can you take our comments back to the leadership team and still keep it as a draft right now? I don't feel comfortable passing something I don't really agree with, but I think it's a good first attempt, but I think I think we need to have more conversation about it. And can we just have you take it back for more conversation?
You absolutely, as a body, if that is your wishes, and that is possible, certainly.
So,
Right now, there is a motion on the table, so that should be voted. If the committee wants to not accept this draft at the moment, you would vote, the motion would not carry, then you can go forward with the Alexis. There's
Can
a
I ask-
motion on the table, so the committee should vote on that motion.
Can I ask a question?
so what I was hearing the motion, what Ms. Nancy was saying is that this is a draft. So currently, that means it's a living document subject to change at any time. So, I mean, I'm comfortable approving the draft to be amended as we go forward. but only if it's to draft. Like, we need to make sure that we're being mindful of the bargaining unit who has put this request forward. And then just try and,
I would suggest that if the committee votes, whatever draft the committee votes to accept, it should be the draft that the committee wants. So if this is not, if there's thought and we want to go back and we want a little bit more discussion, then I would recommend that the committee not vote and pass this draft. And then a subsequent draft can be. I mean, there is a vote motion on the table and it is seconded, so if the committee should vote. If it fails, then it fails.
Can I ask a question? before the
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Just, so there was one suggestion about how to trim a day, potentially to move forward, and I don't know, I don't see a lot of other options, but are there other obvious? I mean, if we start a day early, we're in essentially the same situation. Starting the day before a holiday weekend doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So I don't know. We can go back and say, come back to us a month from now, but I don't see a lot of clear ways that you want to make February break a day shorter, or somebody coming in for a 1 day week, or I don't know what's possible, but
Some possibilities would be, as you suggested, the day before the Thanksgiving break. Not that, but it's possible to consider starting a little bit earlier if you wanted to, end school earlier. Not suggesting that anybody has endorsed that, but those are possibilities. It makes it unique year that we have both a primary day and the presidential election year. So that adds some complexities to it. Certainly your option, as a committee is to, if you wanted to send this back to the superintendent, which I will communicate accordingly, to take another look at it or come with more than one draft, that's a possibility as well.
it's I'm trying to think back. I can't remember a year when we didn't have a snow day. So the likelihood is that our last day is not our last day. I don't know if we probably don't have to go back to verify that we've never gone a year without a snow day, but if we move it back a day, we're probably ending up with the same last day. If we stay where we are, we're probably ending up with a Monday as our last day, which creates the same problem, if not worse, than what we have here. It seems like we don't have a lot of great options for this just because of the way the calendar is falling right now.
Yes, I mean, you have a finite amount of time and a certain required amount of days, and it is an issue of, making certain decisions, give and take at some level.
And just one other question about, there was maybe a few years ago, I think it was maybe it was during COVID, RIDE had a recommended calendar. At one year, they forced a calendar on everybody. Do they still issue a recommended calendar? Or did they give you something?
They issued a very sort of minimal calendar this year, minimal recommendation, which actually identified the February break and April break and recommended that most LEAs adopt that. So we had commonality around those.
The one other thing I'll note, because I didn't this time, but usually get communication from someone about the Yom Kippur holiday, which falls on a better day next year than this year. But we should note that usually we don't have after school sports on that day, or after school activities on that day, because it starts at Sunday. But
I appreciate that. Thank you.
None on the floor to make a vote for this draft calendar. I am going to do a roll call on this particular vote. So Mr. Bradley Share,
aye.
Mr. James Restivo,
Nay.
Ms. Carol Better,
Nay.
Ms. Melissa Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Kate Nancy,
Aye.
Ms. Michelle Busso,
Aye.
and myself, aye. That motion passes 5-2. Okay, next item on the agenda, and our last item on the agenda is the 2024 coaching positions.
Before we take this item up, I do want to remind the council that appointments is reserved, the authority to appoint is reserved with the superintendent. The other concern is that if there's any discussion, and I did speak briefly with Ms. Vetter about this, about an individual candidate, those notices have not gone out. So we can't discuss, by name, particular individuals. So this item probably should have gone onto a superintendent's report versus just a consent agenda, because to be quite frank, it does not require school committee approval. Be blunt.
So, and that's the exact reason I wanted it separated from the consent agenda. We don't have enough information to approve or not approve this list of individuals. This is something that the superintendent, along with the athletic director, puts together. So I don't think it's appropriate for us to have to vote on it. And I don't feel comfortable, since we don't personally have any responsibility in vetting these individuals. So again, I concur with Michael that this should have been in a superintendent's report or something where we just don't need to vote on it.
They'll approve the recommendations of the superintendent. So, I mean, but we're not taking a official vote for the position
So,
or any.
right, and the superintendent's report probably should have been like informational only. This is the list. It's not something that we should be voting on. And I think we need to really look at what belongs on the superintendent report and what belongs on the consent agenda, because I've had issues with things in the superintendent report that belong on the consent agenda as well. And process matters to me. And we need to do it right. And this is just one example where we shouldn't be voting on this. We don't have the knowledge to vote on this. And it belongs with the superintendent. So, and again, when things are on the superintendent's report that belong on the consent agenda, that can be an issue too. We need to make sure that things are vetted properly and put where they belong, and things that should come to our attention and for a vote do. And those things that belong with the superintendent get there. Again, I believe process matters.
One thing, I do believe that this was intended for informational purposes. So again, placement on the agenda is something that I can certainly look into, and I did review the agenda, and I wasn't. I apologize if it was misplaced. So I will take blame, because Terry certainly forwarded it to me and I had the opportunity to look at it. So I personally missed that. Just as far as the comments regarding items that have been on the superintendent's report that should be, I believe that issue was largely with the prior administration. And I was sitting at meetings where oftentimes the committee would take a vote to approve the superintendent's report. And with that, the prior administration would take that as, yes, I get to do all of these things. So I
agree.
So I did have a conversation in the past, and in my experience with current administration, that has not been as great of a concern. And if it has been, please let me know.
I totally agree. And I did not mean that in our current administration at all, but I have seen it in the past, and it has bothered me, and I have said things in the past where this belongs on the consent agenda. And I think it's important, and I do think we've done a much better job. But again, I think when I see something that I don't think we should be voting on, I feel like I have a responsibility to remove it from the consent agenda so we can have this discussion. That's really what I wanted, was the discussion.
Thank you for bringing it up, Carol. And understanding our role in particularly for this is approval when it does appear perhaps again on the consent agenda. It might be something that I would pull because I'm not asking about specific individuals, but I do notice that not every sport is listed here. So that would be something I might want to follow up with the superintendent at another time to be able to ask why are some included versus not. And that might be something I would prefer not to vote on either because I'm curious about why that is here in front of us at the moment.
I guess I just have a question, like from a procedural perspective, does,
Vote.
okay, that's
You know,
it.
you can just
I'm like,
motion to adjourn.
superintendent and athletic director are handling their business and we're just saying, you got it. Okay, great. I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes at 8:47.